Welcome back to Monday Mod Tips. I realize it's been a while since I did just a straight Monday Mod Tips, and what we're going to be looking at today is both kind of a combination of a Monday Mod Tip as well as a diagnostic and repair. And I realize that this is an orange piece of plastic on an orange background, which isn't great, but what I'm going to be talking about today are how to repair broken posts. So, a number of people have asked me in comments and in emails, like the post for my trigger broke, what do I do? Or the post for the pusher on my strife broke, so what do I do? So it'll depend on where the post broke. And I'm using the parts that were left over from when I built my Spamf, because it has two perfect examples of the kinds of ways that a post could break. And I'm going to demonstrate how I would repair them, and hopefully something like that will work for you. First off, we have this one, which is supported halfway up, but so where it's likely to break is right at that support point. And this is an important part of this blaster because this is actually a post where a part attached and hinged. And so if that broke off, since it's a load-bearing part, you're not likely going to be able to just glue it. Glue alone is not likely to have enough structural support to be able to support a load-bearing part like that. So you're going to need to get a little bit more creative, and what I'm going to recommend is to use a screw to reinforce that post. Now you might have to sand it on both ends or Dremel it or whatever to flatten it because it probably didn't break perfectly clean, but for this that's unnecessary. We're going to take, because of the size of this particular hole, we're going to my random screw bin, from which the screws come. And we're going to grab a relatively small diameter screw. That one ought to work. And we're going to screw it into the broken side of the post that is still in the blaster. It needs to be large enough that it's solidly in there, and it needs to be a long enough screw that it is solidly in there. Can you see that? Can I see? Ah, I can see. So we've gone a fair distance into there. Might be a little bit too far, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we don't need to have it perfect. So you've got that screw in there. You're then going to take cutters and you're going to cut off the head of the screw, and then you're going to thread on the broken end. You may need a pair of pliers to get it all the way down. And there it is. Now it's actually arguably stronger than it ever was before because now there is a metal shim in there. Now you could do this with just a metal rod if you had a long enough metal rod that you could put in there, but screws are very brittle. As in they don't bend easily. They're very rigid. Whereas like just regular steel rod or steel wire, if it's mild steel, is much more likely to flex and bend. Whereas a screws don't like to bend. So that should give you more than enough rigidity for whatever application you're going to be using, whether it's a trigger or some other load-bearing part. That should suffice to be solid enough to hold. The other option is if it broke all the way. So this one is broken off at the base. So there isn't anything for us to put a screw into, so we're going to have to come at it from the other side, which means I need a drill, which I should have prepped before I started this video, but that'll tell you how organized I am these days. Drill bits. So we're going to take a relatively small drill bit. I'm using 5/16 here, and we're going to drill a hole all the way through the shell. So we now have a hole coming out the other side, and then you can probably figure out where this is going. You're going to put a screw in from the outside. And I would recommend using a, if you have one, throwing your screwdriver around, very important part of this process. If you have one, a washer-headed screw, one of the wide-headed screws so that it has more support on the outside. And then again, you're going to thread your post onto that screw. You may need, again, you may need to use pliers to hold it in place and then screw it in. You might want a larger screwdriver so you don't strip your screw head out. There we go. There we go. Lovely. It would not go amiss to put a little glue on there before you put it on. Just, I don't know if you saw any of that. So, we have a screw going from the outside, going up into the post. And again, the post is now arguably stronger than it was before. Like I said, a little bit of glue in there wouldn't go amiss, but that's not going to break off where it broke off before. Tightening it all the way down. Oop. Be careful not to strip out the bottom because then you'd really be in trouble. Okay, yeah. Now it is very solidly in place. It's not going anywhere. You do now have a screw on the outside, which is possibly aesthetically displeasing to you, but it will work again. So that is how I recommend repairing broken posts, screw posts, is using screws. So, in general, the longer the better, but you want to make sure that if you're doing something like this, if there's a screw that's supposed to come in from the top, you need to make sure that there's enough room for it. You need to make sure that there's enough room for it. So you don't want your thread that's coming up from the bottom to be too high. You need to have enough room for that. In this case, it doesn't matter because this actually didn't have that. I have deformed the post slightly. Can I undeform it? I think so. Yes. Now that will go on there. It will still hinge. Not sure which. I think it was supposed to be like that. So yeah, it would work again. So there you go. That is how I would recommend repairing broken posts on the inside of your blaster. So hopefully this was helpful to somebody. Thank you guys for watching.